Welcome, everybody. This is our webinar, regular scheduled webinar on Wednesday, September 24th. My name is Steven Munatones, the CEO and co-founder of KAATSU Global. And thank you very much for interest. A number of you have sent in questions. I will address those questions first, and then thereafter, if you have any other questions, you can raise your hand or put your questions in the chat room. And I apologize for that start and stop initially. So the first question is, you can pull it up here. My husband has atrial fibrillation and is taking medication for it. Can he use KAATSU? And he has a bad knee. So I will address the AFib first. Yes, he can use KAATSU with the knowledge and information of his cardiologist. Now, I understand most, if not all, cardiologists in Japan and the United States do not understand KAATSU, or if they do, they'll do a cursory Google search and they'll find KAATSU is some sort of BFR, and then with BFR, they'll say definitely not. For those cardiologists who are willing to listen, we do have a packet of information that we could send to them. And this packet of information explains how we started off this journey with KAATSU with a team of cardiologists at the University of Tokyo Hospital, where we tested KAATSU on over 2,000 cardiac patients, most of them skewing older. And it was there that we developed the protocols that were safe and effective for people who were undergoing cardiac rehab, whether they had a stroke, a heart attack, had some sort of heart disease, had a stent implanted, etc., or AFib. So with AFib, with any cardiac disease, with the approval of the cardiologist that we can explain, we always want you only to use the cut cycle mode. We only want you to use the low pressure, and we only want you to use KAATSU as you're sitting down comfortably. These are all basic protocols that we would like you to follow, that you must follow. And there is really a defined program that the cardiologist developed. The person who asked, and everybody else who answered, I've developed a more detailed answer to all of these questions, and we'll be sending out these written answers to all your questions. So instead of going over the tiny details of how someone with AFib can use KAATSU, I'll just say that with the approval of your cardiologist, we have very distinct and specific protocols to use. They're very gentle and very light, meaning conservative pressure, and this should help. For the gentleman who has AFib and a bad knee, for the knee, he would be using KAATSU, again, cycles, because he has AFib, low pressure KAATSU cycle mode, sitting down comfortably. He could be doing this twice a day, once in the morning, later in the evening, and just have the pressure on, pressure off, pressure on, pressure off. When you have the pressure on and pressure off, this creates a flow of blood in the vascular system. And when this blood flows back and forth, and you have a pressurized or compression and then decompression, compression and decompression. It's when you have the decompression where the blood flows very quickly through the vascular tissue. And it's here that you actually produce, or the body produces, nitric oxide, vascular endothelial cells, in order to help the elasticity, meaning helping the vascular tissue become more resilient, healthier, more pliable. And this is why KAATSU is safe for cardiac rehab patients. The cardiologist team at the University of Tokyo Hospital understood this, studied this over a 10-year period, and these are the protocols that we follow to this day. The second question is, why is KAATSU so freaking expensive? That's a direct quote. We understand it's expensive, and we understand that it's prohibitively expensive for many people. And that being said, we would love to lower the price. We remain a small company, but we also created this company only after studying over 12,000 patients with University of Tokyo Hospital in Japan, including 2,000 cardiac rehab patients for a 10-year period. That was a huge investment in time, money, and effort on our part. And we weren't selling any products in the US or Europe or anywhere during this period. So we made this investment ahead of time, hoping that we would be able to prove how effective KAATSU is. So that's one reason. We did spend a lot of money before day one investing in the research and science behind KAATSU. Two is that we have developed these bands where the internal air bladder is oval shaped. This is not easy. It's not easy to manufacture. It was not easy to design. It's very, very different from any other BFR company that uses either tourniquets or modified blood pressure cuffs. Modified blood pressure cuffs, you can probably procure those for under $5. I wish KAATSU internal air bladder, oval shaped, elastic, stretchable, could be manufactured for this amount. We have tried very much to manufacture these products in the United States. We have not found a manufacturer who could do it. We currently use a manufacturer in South Korea. Obviously, we have import taxes that we are now paying that we weren't paying before. And so if any of you know of any manufacturer who can do manufacture our products here in the United States, that would very definitely help. So that's one. So it's a cost of material, the investment in research. I know this is the person who asked, right? He doesn't care about the investment of 10 years, or he doesn't care about the cost of materials, but these are the reasons why KAATSU products are the price that they are. We did invest in that team of cardiologists in Japan for 10 years. And again, our focus has always been on how do we keep an aging population as healthy as possible. And that is what our focus is. Yes, we do use KAATSU for Olympic athletes and professional athletes, but really our focus and our mission is on the needs and the ability for KAATSU to help people maintain their muscle mass, maintain their vascularity, meaning keeping it young and pliable. This is our core patent that we do. Initially, in addition, the bands themselves, it took many years of development. I can't tell you the number of band products we have in my garage, in our engineer's garage, that we tried over the years. And we're constantly trying to A, decrease the price, and B, improve the number of parts. If we can reduce the number of parts, we do. But over the years, people have asked us actually to increase the battery life or increase the speed. So we had to increase the quality of our compressor, increase the battery life. And so we try to balance all of these things into a product that we are proud of. It serves our purpose, and unfortunately is expensive. The next question is, what are the contraindications for KAATSU. KAATSU has several cardiac contraindications. If you've had a history of thrombosis or blood clots, any cardiovascular disorder before, if you've had a heart attack, if you have a pacemaker, if you're undergoing any cardiac rehab at all, you should always consult your cardiologist or healthcare professional. We do have um, a kit of information that we can provide them to help them understand what KAATSU does and how it's different from BFR. So these are the basics. If you have cancer, if you have I don't know, hypertension, a ruptured muscle, fractured bone, any acute disease. These are all things that no matter what you have, whether it's KAATSU, BFR, or something else, you should always consult your physician. The reason why we do work with a lot of professional athletes who have ruptured muscles. We do work with a lot of young men, older people who have fractured their bones. We do have people who have anything from diabetes to metabolic syndrome, and they all use they use KAATSU, but they use them in a very controlled manner, meaning KAATSU cycle, pressure on, pressure off, where the band is only inflated for 30 seconds and is then deflated. It starts off at a very gentle, very low pressure and increases very incrementally. So there should be no discomfort, no clamminess of the hands, no tingling. And if you do that, as we learned in the first 10 years of the company's life, when we weren't selling anything, that KAATSU is safe for people up to the age of 104. Next question is, my husband has venous insufficiency in one leg for the last 40 years. He has to wear a compression stocking all the time. Would KAATSU affect the veins in that leg? Yes, it may. Allow me to a little bit explain here. So what the compression stockings do is it applies a gradual, constant external pressure on the legs, and this actually helps the blood flow. It prevents pooling, so you've got a valve in your leg, and when there's venous insufficiency, the blood doesn't go up back to the torso normally is with the pressure on, pressure off, pressure on, pressure off. This actually increases this the elasticity of the valves. It allows the valves to function more normally, and therefore that pooling effect can be avoided, but this takes time. This takes repeated use over the course of several months. And because the makeup of that valve, the valves in the vein is it's different than the veins itself. It's thicker. It serves a purpose. So it does take more time to do this. And so what we recommend is you could, if he has a hesitation about using it on his leg with the venous insufficiency, he could use it on the other leg and the bands on his arms. So we have 4 opportunities to use KAATSU on our 2 arms and our 2 legs. But if there's some situation where either the arms or legs are is precluded from using, or you're hesitant from using, you could use on the other 3 limbs, whether it's your 2 arms or one or the other legs. Next question is, what is the safety profile of KAATSU for individuals at risk or currently diagnosed with cancer? That's the first part of the question. And second part of the question is there any evidence to suggest that KAATSU would make KAATSU worse? So the first and easiest part of that question is, if KAATSU made cancer worse, we would have gone beyond the 10-year test period in the hospital. The 10-year period where we were tested in the University of Tokyo Hospital, considered the #1 hospital in Japan. If that did occur, then what we would have done is we would have stopped. Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. I thought for some reason it'd come on. So anyway, during that 10-year period, we were being constantly tested on whether or not KAATSU was in any way dangerous or risky or anything for any number of issues, whether it was diabetes, cancer, cardiac issues, I don't know, or any untoward event. It was for 10 years. It was with over 12,000 people. So we did have a sufficient pool of data with a lot of individuals, mostly skewing older. And there was no issue with problems or untoward event with people with cardiac issues or cancer or anything from diabetes to cerebral palsy to muscular dystrophy, etc. So any concerns about KAATSU is you don't have to worry about it. And in fact, we have very many documented cases with people with prostate, breast, skin, pancreatic, lung cancer, and leukemia who have used KAATSU either during their treatment and in remission. And here they were doing the same thing that our cardiac rehab patients were doing, very low pressure cycles while sitting down, nothing extraordinarily vigorous or intense, just allowing the machine to go pressure on, pressure off, allowing the engorgement of blood in the limbs. And this isn't causing the cancerous cells to generate or grow anymore. Sorry. Next question is, I have been recently diagnosed with lymphedema and have a family history of blood clots. I'm getting tested for factor V Linden gene. Both of my sisters, who are 9 and 10 years older than me, have the gene and have had blood clots. I also have an upcoming vein ultrasound to see if there is evidence of any past blood clots or vein issues. Is KAATSU safe for me to use? To be honest, I don't know. This is more of a question for your physician. And if your physician is worried about your clots or any vein issues that you may have, I think it's best to avoid KAATSU. We never want to push KAATSU on anybody that has any hesitation or any worry about the risk of anything such as blood clots. And so I'm sure out of those 12,000 people who were previous tested and the millions of other people since 2004, that somebody had that factor V Linden gene. I don't know if it's extraordinarily rare, but my immediate answer would be it's best to avoid KAATSU, and it's best to confirm if we do have any evidence of past blood clots or vein issues. If not, then KAATSU, I believe, would be safe for you to use. If so, then I would just look at other interventions that your physician is recommending. Next question is, please address specific KAATSU protocols for the treatment of spider veins. So spider veins, if you're not aware, are created when the valves in the legs weaken. So you've got these valves that allow the blood to flow up from your feet back to your torso. And when those valves weaken, the blood behind them pools up and they dilate the blood vessels, and this results in the spider veins that we see on the surface of our skin. The spider veins can be caused by a number of factors, from genetics to um, uh, pressure, just perhaps standing all day. Let's say you work in a retail location and it's a concrete floor and you're standing on your feet 8 hours a day, or you're a security officer or first responder. There's could be hormonal changes that are happening. A pregnancy can occur. So anyway, the formation of spider veins has a number of factors, and in order to help for COTS to help, we recommend patience, adherence, meaning compliance, and gentleness. So in other words, it will take a while for the elasticity of the valves to improve. This means daily use of KAATSU, um, even twice daily use of the COTS cycle mode in the low pressure setting. In this case, you can apply with a one finger tightness, meaning you put the bands on, you can put one finger in between the bands and your skin. Do 2 or 3 COTS cycles, sets, and then you can actually manually retighten the bands even more. What happens is when the COTS cycle goes for 2 or 3 cycle sets, the vascular tissue actually becomes more soft, more pliable, and the muscle itself actually relaxes. Now, this happens if you're sitting in a relaxed manner, not obviously while you're doing, let's say, burpees or squats, but if you're sitting relaxed, what happens is the ability for the the bands to be placed tighter is greater. So do 2 or 3 cycle sets, a low pressure mode, then put the bands, hold the bands and put it slightly tighter. This will actually increase the engorgement of blood. It'll actually increase the shear stress that goes when the bands are, so when the blood is flowing in and out of the veins during the compression and decompression phases. And this will help the elasticity of the valves over time. We would recommend that you do this daily. And it doesn't have to be that you constantly carve out some time in a day to do your KAATSU workout. It could be when you've sat down after a day, after you've cooked a meal, after you come back from work, after you finish gardening, whatever the case is, and use the KAATS bands on your legs there. I would recommend to use the KAATS bands on your arms first. This actually helps increase, it helps the leg vascular tissue warm up. If you like the ultimate KAATSU effect, use the bands on your arms for 2 or 3 cycles, then take them off, then put the bands on. You could be having the bands on while you're washing dishes, while you're I don't know, walking your dog, any number of things. You don't need to do very specific exercises. Just use the bands in the course of your day. Next question is, can COTS help with the numbness in my toes and balls of my feet? I've been a cyclist for years, and I think I have nerve damage from riding with cleated shoes that put pressure on the balls of my feet. I also suffer from very cold fingers and toes, especially during the winter months. My fingers go almost white. Can COTS help with this also? So the first question is concerning, first part of the question is concerning the numbness in your toes and the balls of your feet. And the second part of the question is, I suffer from very cold fingers and toes, especially during the winter months. And so the first about the numbness in the balls of your toes and your feet, it could be that doing COTS cycle sets, 2 separate sessions per day once in the morning and then once ideally in the evening, about an hour before you go to bed. If you put the bands on with that one finger tightness for 1 or 2 cycle sets in this case, always be very well hydrated. This is important in the case of the numbness. Always be very well hydrated. And what we mean by well hydrated is your urine should be nearly clear. It should not be bright yellow. The bright yellowness indicates a dehydrated state. And sometimes we have this issue with college students, and we recommend that they are well hydrated. And they say, well, I drank a big cup of coffee. And then we ask, well, and they did it in let's say morning before they went to class, and they see us in the afternoon at lunchtime or something, and they haven't hydrated since. Well, they're not well hydrated. You're well hydrated if your urine is nearly clear. That would be best to help help the effects of KAATSU. So after you've done 1 or 2 cycle sets, in the case of this cyclist, then manually retighten the bands slightly and do an additional 4 or 5 cat cycle sets. Do that for about, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks, and the numbness that you feel may not be eliminated, but it may possibly be reduced. That's what I would do. You could also try doing these cut cycle sets as you walk or as you stretch. You do any kind of, I'll say, micro movements or limited movements. You can sit and rotate your ankle. You can curl your toes. You could be lying down on a couch. You could be sitting up on that couch, or you can be walking around the home or office. Now, your second part of the question is that you suffer from cold fingers and toes, especially during the winter months, and your fingers go almost white. This sounds to me like you have Raynaud's disease, Raynaud's syndrome. And this is when the body, the capillaries in your fingers or your toes is constricted and blood does not flow into the far extremities of your hands or feet. This is why your fingers go white in the winter. It can be triggered by cold. It can be triggered by stress. It can be triggered by a number of things, but it is a syndrome that is personal to you. Now, KAATSU can help increase elasticity of the capillaries over time, but very much like your nerve disease, it most likely will not eliminate it. It may help it, but it won't eliminate it. This is something inherent to your body. So here, just like you do on your legs, you would use the KAATSU on your arms with a one finger tightness. Do it for 1 or 2 cycle sets, and then retighten always in the low pressure set. The reason why we say that is people with Raynaud's syndrome, when you engorge the fingertips in blood, it actually feels good. The problem is when you take the bands off, then the inherent issue with the circulation in your capillaries and fingers, it's like you've stretched the balloon too much, and there's an uncomfortableness about it. So be very conservative with your pressure. It should be lighter than normal, and therefore you would never use a medium pressure or a higher pressure. Um, uh, but whether you have the numbness in the balls of your feet or the whiteness in your fingertips, with KAATSU, it can help. It's no guarantee. And but if you did use it, you would use it very gently and very conservatively to start, and do it very diligently, meaning daily, ideally twice a day. And this will most definitely help the elasticity improve. So those are the questions. I'm sorry to just fly through them. Those are the questions that were sent in. And if there's, oh, I see there's they have a number of questions. And the first comment is, why do you keep having these when they are a waste of my time? Um, uh, I apologize. If they're wasting your time, there's no need for you to attend. You could just ignore our emails, and these are questions that people have sent in, and we try to respond to the questions that they have. So I apologize if they're a waste of your time, and you can simply log off and allow others to ask questions and us to try to answer the questions. Next question is, how do I find a KAATSU personal trainer in Huntington Beach? I live in Huntington Beach, and although I don't give personal training sessions, I am willing to try to find someone in the area. There are some trainers in Newport Beach, which is just south of Huntington Beach, and if you email us at info@kaatsu.com, we can try to connect you with these KAATSU trainers. Do you have information I can show my doctor? I am taking blood pressure medicine. Yes, we can send you that information. Just send that exact question you have to info@kaatsu.com, and we can send you a variety of information that you can show your doctor. And if any physician, your physician or others have questions, we could always answer their questions directly by text, by telephone, by Zoom, or by email. Next question is, what is the protocol for treatment of spider veins? I previously mentioned this, and this protocol for spider veins is that you would use the bands on your legs, cycles. When you sit down, always sit down when you put your when you put your bands on. Always sit down. Do not stand up while you put the bands on. Sit down, tighten the band to a 1-finger tightness, go to 2 or 3 cycle sets, allow the body to respond, then manually retighten the bands ever so slightly and continue with the cut cycles. Ideally, you do body weight movement. Ideally, the best form is walking. So you literally walk with the bands. You don't have to walk far. You don't have to walk at a high pace, but you actually just walk. You could do other things. You could be standing and doing stuff, or you could just be sitting and doing some kind of movement. Doing some kind of movement is better than doing no movement. And this differs obviously from people who have a cardiac issue. Is there any known dementia improvement for people using a KAATSU device? So what happens when you put your bands on the arms or legs and you do the KAATSU cycle mode? You actually, there's a phenomenon called angiogenesis. This is the phenomenon where you actually create new capillaries in the body. And we've demonstrated this first at the University of Tokyo Hospital and then at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland. We've demonstrated it in numerous controlled studies from Japan to Switzerland. And here we have a finite amount of blood in the body, and that finite amount of blood in the body is now captured by an increased amount of blood in either your arms or legs. When this happens, this necessarily means you have less blood in the rest of your body, including in your brain. And when that happens, the body responds, the brain actually responds naturally, and it actually creates new capillaries in the body. When he first discovered this back in 2004 in the University of Tokyo Hospital, we were taken aback. We were quite surprised, but it made sense to us and to the cardiologist. So increased cerebral blood flow, which we are now testing for in a citizen science project. Increased cerebral blood flow is one area where people who understand neurology know that this can help with dementia. Now you have to do this daily. You have to continue doing it. And our first project is actually putting it out in the marketplace. So they use a small earpiece that measures the cerebral blood flow and cerebral blood volume. And while they're doing KAATSU, we document that all wirelessly, and it's able to show that there is increased blood flow and blood volume in the brain. This isn't a direct correlation to an improvement in dementia, but it is a one step in that area. Does KAATSU ever go on sale? We do have an occasional sale. I think the last sale we had was Memorial Day. And I do not manage our sales, but we had it on Memorial Day, and we may have had it previously on Father's Day, and I believe we have it. The best thing to do is ask that question in an email, and we can provide a question when there's a 10% discount on the products. What will KAATSU do for people with high diastolic blood pressure in the mid 80s to low 90s? So frequent use, meaning daily use in the KAATSU cycle, is demonstrably ability to help increase the vascular tissue and the elasticity of the vascular tissue, and that's from your head to your toe. When the pipes of your body, your vascular tissue, becomes more elastic, this means that when the blood comes out of your body, it is being circulated incrementally better. We can't say that it's going to, but when you increase elasticity of vascular tissue, this is one factor in addressing this. If you ask this question by an email, we can provide you with the studies and the medical information to back up what I just mentioned. What resources are available for recommended workout routines using KAATSU, particularly routines using dumbbells or resistance machines? What resources? We do have our user guide. I assume that you are looking to increase muscular strength or size, and typically the protocols that we use is quite simple. You would put the KAATSU bands on using the KAATSU cycle mode. Use the protocol in that you would only rest 20 seconds between each set, and you do between 3 and 5 sets of each exercise. So let's say, very simply, I'm doing bicep curls. I'm doing bicep curls, and select a pressure that you can do 30 bicep curls at whatever weight that you want. We would highly recommend a low weight. So we're talking 5 pounds or less. So select a pressure that you could do ideally 30 repetitions with 5-pound dumbbells. It sounds very, very light, but we want you to do these repetitions very slowly as you contract the muscle as it goes up and down. So do 30 slow bicep curls. By the 30th or so, number 25, number 32, etc., you reach muscular failure. Stop, rest for 20 seconds, and then start your second set. When you do your second set, you should not be able to do the same number of repetitions as the first set. So let's say you can do 30 repetitions the first set, rest 20 seconds, then do the second set. Probably you won't be able to do 20 repetitions, maybe 15 to 20 repetitions. Rest no more than 20 seconds. Do a third set, do a fourth set, and if you can, do a fifth set. Each of those sets, you should be falling in the number of repetitions that you do each subsequent time. You do that for your next exercise and your next exercise and your next exercise. We would recommend that you start with your smaller muscle groups and then end with your larger muscle groups. So in the case of your upper body, start with your forearms, then go to your biceps, then go to your triceps, then go to your lats, for example. In your legs, you would start off with your calves, then work on your quadriceps and hamstrings. So in summary, rest no more than 20 seconds between each set, do between 3 and 5 sets, move the limb slowly, very slowly, keep the muscle contracted both in the upwards and downwards direction, and aim for a number of reps on the first set to be about 30. If you only do 20, that's okay. How long does a product last? How long is a warranty? I was quite surprised. I visited New York City a few months ago, and I just so happened to be in a clinic where one of our first KAATSU specialists was. It was in Midtown Manhattan, and a woman walks in, and she sat down in the lobby where I was, and she had the KAATSU Nano device. The KAATSU Nano device was a device that we manufactured in 2014. So in this particular case, we had a KAATSU product that when I introduced myself to her, and she's quite surprised. And I said, how, that's a product that we sold in 2014. She says, yes, I'm one of your first customers. I said, well, how long have you been using this product? She says, I use it all the time. In this particular case, she has kept very good use of it. Now, along the way, she has used or she's replaced a number of her bands. The bands, because there are, it's not solid state electronics, it's a band with, Velcro, it's a band with an internal air bladder of rubber. There's material fabric around it. These last a lot less than the actual product itself. So the warranty on the bands is only 6 months. And we do replace those. If the bands do not reach warranty, that's not a problem. And if you're out of warranty, then it's simply a replacement cost, but the product itself lasts a lot longer, the controller part. When using the KAATSU units, are you allowed or supposed to use the arms or legs pairs one at a time? How come you can't use both the arms and legs at the same time? I'll take the second question first. You don't use the arms and legs at the same time in order to avoid fainting. That's the easiest answer. So imagine you have an engorgement of blood in the arms and engorgement of blood in both the legs. You now have lesser blood in your torso and head. Now, your body will respond, your brain will respond, and it will create new capillaries in the brain. But if you're doing any kind of aerobic exercise, or if you are at high altitude, let's say in Denver or Salt Lake City, etc., will happen if you do any kind of aerobic exercise and you have bands on all 4 sides, you will not have enough blood in your brain, and it is possible that you will faint. You won't have a cardiac arrest, but you can faint. If you faint at your home, walking downstairs, in a gym, and you hit your head on dumbbell that was there or a bench or something, that would not be good at all. So we do not want you to use KAATSU on both your arms and legs at the same time. It's a safety factor, and we are quite strict on this. I will tell you the Melbourne Kangaroos, they're a professional Australian rules football team. They came out to Salt Lake City where I was explaining KAATSU to their medical staff. Their medical staff did not believe me at the time, and they asked their athletes, very fit, very well-trained Australian rules football players, to use KAATSU on their arms and legs, and they were doing burpees. And it was less than 30 seconds later, they all stopped. Several of them went outside the room and vomited. They were extremely sick. They were nauseous, and they fortunately did not faint. Um, and the doctor looked at me and he says, now I understand. So definitely do not use COTS on both your arms, legs at the same time, because you have this engorgement of blood in your arms and legs. And this means that you have less blood in your head, and you can get lightheaded and faint. You can use either the armbands or leg bands one at a time, and we call this single limb KAATSU. We do this for people who are undergoing rehabilitation. Let's say they have tendonitis, or they've broken a finger, or they've had total knee replacement, or other kind of injury on one limb or the other. In these cases, we actually put the band on the limb that is injured. We also do so, let's say you have a continuous glucose monitor on one arm, and the placement of the band is precluded by that continuous glucose monitor, then we put the band on the other arm. So you can use single limb KAATSU. We also use single limb KAATSU on one leg or one arm if an athlete or a person is lacking balance or strength on one side versus the other. So sometimes we use it for basketball players who want to improve going to their left, or let's say a switch hitter in baseball, and they're normally a lefty, and we want to strengthen their right side, then we'll put the bands on one side or the other. We also do so for people who have strokes and their one side of their bodies impacted versus the other side. We'll use the bands single limb KAATSU on one side, the side that is affected or you want to get stronger. Does KAATSU offer a protocol of exercises that addresses sarcopenia? Yes, we have a variety of protocols for sarcopenia. It's a rather long list, and if you send an email to info@kaatsu.com, we can send you out that. Fundamentally, you want to start off doing KAATSU on your arms and then your legs. You want to do very much like the exercises that or the answer that I gave previously to the person who had the talking about the dumbbells. You basically do exercises, a variety of exercises, always in the KAATSU cycle. Do 3 to 5 sets of each exercise. Do rest only 20 seconds in between each set. Be very well hydrated when you do this, meaning that you're drinking enough water in order to have nearly clear urine. Move your limbs slowly, whether that's in your upper body or lower body. Start off with your arms and then proceed to your legs. You can do very simple exercises like curling your toes or rotating your ankles, but you can also do wall sits. You can also do squats. You can also do tricep extensions. You can take 2 water bottles and use those as resistance. You can do walking upstairs. And so you can take one step at a time or two steps at a time. You could be on a stationary bicycle. You could walk on a treadmill. So all of these things can be done. And we have a long variety of exercises that you can follow. Just send an email at info@kaatsu.com. Next question is it safe to use by a 92-year-old healthy woman? She does have mild osteoporosis and a DEXA scheduled in December. Well, that would be great. Yes. Our oldest person to date has been 104 years old among females, and we had a 99-year-old man start KAATSU last year. So he should be 100 by now. We have several 90-year-olds use KAATSU, including my 90-year-old father. He's had prostate cancer, he's had lung cancer, and he still uses KAATSU. His hips are not doing too well, but in the morning he does KAATSU on his upper body, and in the evening when he's watching Los Angeles Dodgers, his favorite team, or the Los Angeles Lakers, he's sitting on the couch with the bands on his legs. So he does KAATSU twice a day. He's either holding a newspaper in the morning with his arms, or he's sitting down in his couch, and every now and then during the commercials, he's lifting his legs up and down. He doesn't walk so well, so he doesn't use KAATSU on his legs while he's walking. He uses a cane. So yes, a 90-year-old woman is perfectly fine, especially if you're healthy. The next question is, I do an 8-minute HIIT routine that's high intensity training with jump rope once per week. Would it be safe to do this using KAATSU? And if so, would you put the bands on your arms or legs? So if you have a device that has the tubes, I would avoid using a KAATSU as you do a jump rope. But if you have our wireless devices where you have the bands on your arms without connector tubes, this is fine. I would actually alternate using the bands on your arms with your legs as you do your jump rope workout. I would do once on my arms, the next time I would do once on my legs, or you just cut your workout in half and you do half arms and half legs. All in all, you generally get more bang for your buck if you use KAATSU on your legs versus your arms. But some people are working on their legs more than their arms, or vice versa. So this would depend what you like. But personally, if it were me and I were doing this once a week and I wanted more bang for my buck, if I was using jump rope for 10, 15 minutes, I would use it exclusively on my legs. That's for me, because most of the time when I do KAATSU, I'm sitting down at my computer and using KAATSU on my upper body, my arms. Can KAATSU be used daily applying to different body parts? Can hypertrophy continue using KAATSU this way? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. Can KAATSU be used daily by applying to different body parts? So there are only two places where you put the KAATSU bands: on your upper arms and your upper legs. Now you can work on different body parts. So you can actually work on your core very much, whether you have the bands on. In this case, if you're working on your core, I'd recommend using the KAATSU on your legs. So you can use KAATSU on your legs as you're doing planks, as you're doing sit-ups, as you're doing crunches, but also you can use KAATSU on your legs by putting a book on your head and walking back and forth in your office or in the gym, keeping your shoulders back, straight spine, and strong or tightening your stomach. This is also very good. We actually saw this used many times in Japan and Eastern Europe, where athletes work on their core by walking like a supermodel. You can also work on your core by putting the bands in your legs and then standing on one leg, or I'm standing on one foot and just holding that position. If you can master that, then I would take two water bottles and move it around asymmetrically, randomly, working on your core as you have the bands on your legs, standing on one foot. But you can work on your, triceps, your lats, your deltoids, your core, your chest. So if you work on your chest, a Mr. Olympia, and this is he was a master's athlete at the time. He first worked on his forearm, then did some biceps, then some triceps, and his fourth set of the day was bench press. And he was all the time he was on the cut cycle mode, and he was doing that 3 to 5 reps, 3 to 5 sets per exercise with only 20 seconds rest. By the time he got to the triceps, he was drenched. You can see that he was enormously pumped. And by the time he got to his bench press, you could see his chest quiver. So yes, all these you can work on different body parts. Let's see. The next question is, I would love to see if there is a trainer in my area in North Carolina. Asheville, North Carolina. We actually have there's a part on our website where you can actually find out where we have our trainers. I don't remember off the top of my head what page it is, but if you send that question again to info@kaatsu.com, our customer service staff can direct you to the person closest to Asheville, North Carolina. If there's not someone physically there, we have a wonderful woman, one younger, Kenzie, one older, Sandy, and they could, either of them can work with you remotely. Both of them are wonderful women, very patient, very knowledgeable, very understanding, and they can instill discipline in you. I know it's not as good as a face-to-face interaction, but they are personable, and I think you would enjoy either of them or both of them. And they can be reached online, and you coordinate your time and schedule with them directly. Next question is, let's see. Next question, I use the bands for resistance training. I usually train the equivalent of 3 cycle sets. I'm always wondering exactly how tight I should put the KAATSU bands on my arms and at what cycle setting I should use. I'm never sure I'm doing it right. Also, how many cycles should I set without loosening them? Lots of questions here. So fundamentally, you're putting the bands on with a 1 finger tightness inside. This is a guideline. What you're really, really looking for is your capillary refill time. And that's when I don't have the bands on here, but if I press my forefinger or thumb into my hand and release, you will see white appears, and then the blood fills back in. This normally is 1-2 seconds in time. That's the same kind of capillary refill time you want with the bands on. So when you have the bands on, this capillary refill time will actually be slightly faster. It means that the blood is engorged in limb. So you put the bands on with the 1 finger tightness. If this capillary refill time is slower than 3 seconds, in other words, if I press and I release and it's 1, 2, 3, that's way too long. If I press and it fills up and it's there, it's perfectly fine. You can actually put the bands on slightly tighter. You always want a fast capillary refill time. That is sort of the gold standard, very objective, that anybody can do anywhere, that you use on your arms or your legs. On your upper body, you check with on the palm of your hand using a forefinger or thumb, pressing firmly, and then release while the bands are inflated. On your legs, you put the bands on your legs, and then you can do the same thing, putting a forefinger or thumb into either your quadriceps above your knee or your calves, anywhere in your calves, and press. Here, if it's more than 3 seconds, then loosen up the band slightly. If it's ideally it's fast, 1 or 2 seconds, that's very good. So that's sort of the tightening basic protocol. As you do KAATSU, you'll be able to find that you can put on the bands for slightly tighter. This is how the body responds. So again, look at how your body responds vascularly on to the degree of what the tightness that you can do. You're doing 3 cycles, so each cycle is about 7 minutes each. So you're doing it for about 20 minutes, and that's good. You don't have, if you do 1 cycle, you can continue to do another cycle right after. We've set the unit for 6 cycles as a max, so that's about 40 to 45 minutes. So you can use the cycle sets up to 45 minutes at a shot, no problem. Now, of course, there's some limitations to that if you're at high altitude and you live at sea level. So if you live in, let's say, Los Angeles, and you travel up to Denver, Colorado, and you do KAATSU, you should use a slightly less pressure. If you're feeling under the weather, if you are not well hydrated, all of these are reasons why you should put the bands slightly less in pressure. But other than that, I think you're doing well what you have. Next question is, can you use KAATSU in front of an infrared panel? Yes, there would be no reason that you shouldn't, unless I know when I was in front of an infrared panel, I felt slightly more warm. I would recommend that you use be very well hydrated during, but I think it would be fine unless there is something. If this person sends an email, I will research why you would not want to use KAATSU in front of an infrared panel. But off the top of my head, I can't think of the reasons why you cannot. Next question is, any advice regarding the use of KAATSU with VibraSlim? VibraSlim is a vibrating platform with arm guards. Currently, I do a 30-minute routine of 5 sets of 15 heel raises, butt squeezes, and squats each. Ooh, that sounds actually quite not easy. If you're able to do this, I would continue. Now, the only reason I would counsel someone to be cautious about this is if they would fall. So if you do 30 minutes of 5 sets of 15 heel raises, butt squeezes, and squats each, that's a lot of movement on a vibrating platform. Now, of course, you have arm guards, you can hold yourself. But I could see when you use KAATSU concurrently that you're going to build up a lot of lactate much more quickly. And there can be a possibility of falling off or just falling. and that should be avoided. So I would make sure if you're combining KAATSU, you start off in the low pressure and just make sure that you remain strong enough so you don't fall. But I could see after 5 sets of 15 heel raises and 15 butt squeezes and 15 squats on a vibrating machine with KAATSU, that is a tremendous workout. And I would just hope that your leg strength could keep you upright without falling. That would be my only concern. You spoke about a dementia. Could this assist with Parkinson's disease? Thank you very much for answering that question. I'm actually speaking with a professor of neurology who specializes in Parkinson's disease, and other Parkinson's disease researchers from Canada who are doing a controlled test with KAATSU. And again, what we know to be true is that KAATSU leads to increased blood flow, cerebral blood flow, and blood volume. This is good for anybody with neurological diseases, and we're looking at well, we know what we recommend because what we've seen anecdotally, but we want these researchers to confirm in a controlled test what we are finding in the real world. So what happens is you put the bands on your arms or legs, ideally your legs in the case of dementia or Parkinson's or some kind of neurological disease. And this leads to a angiogenesis in your brain. You're increasing capillaries, increasing blood flow in the brain. And this can only help. It certainly won't hurt. But I'm waiting anxiously for those studies to be published. Next question is, I need a new set of tubes for my KAATSU. How do I order these? I believe on our website we should have a order for connector tubes. Sorry, I don't focus on the actual website or its operation. So, but I'm pretty sure we do. And if not, then send an email to info@kaatsu.com and our customer service will respond to you with how to order those, even if it's just over the phone and send them out. But we have tubes in our facility that's just outside of Las Vegas, and they can ship it out to you very easily. Next question is, how long are the cycles? It actually depends on a few factors. So the cycles are meant for 30 seconds, but the actual amount of time that it takes to fill an extra large leg band is much longer than it takes to fill up a small armband. So as you can imagine, more air is needed in an extra large leg band than it is in a small armband. So the actual time to do a complete cycle is different, but once it's filled, the cycles on the C device, so C3, C4, is 30 seconds. For the B2 products, these B2 products are customizable. So you can have the cycles as low as or as short as 20 seconds or as long as 60 seconds. So in the B2 device, which are the wireless devices, you can increase the cycle duration from 20 seconds to 60 seconds. Concurrently, on the decompression phase, you can have it between 5 seconds and 20 seconds. So on the B2, 20 to 60 seconds pressure on, 5 to 20 seconds pressure off, and that is customizable as you see fit. Next question is, can you use KAATSU on sore muscles? Absolutely, and we do see this quite often. Make sure quite often after a workout, especially with our competitive athletes or more active people, whether they've had a long mountain climb, had a hard bike ride, had a long run, or just done something around the house where you're using muscles that you normally don't use. Um, Make sure you're very well hydrated. That's very important. And then take the bands on your arms and legs. Even if you're sore on your legs, start with your arms. Even if you're sore on your arms, also do your legs. Do the KAATSU cycles on low. Start on low. I would do 6 KAATSU cycles on at low, and then do another 6 medium if you feel so. It's really good to do this before you go to bed. Doing this soon after your activity or exercise or workout, but also do it right before you go to bed. And the reason why is what'll happen is the hormonal release that will happen as you're sleeping, and that'll actually help you recover as you're sleeping, in addition to or the cuts will help you recover better as you're sleeping. Can you use the bands on a vibration machine? You can. The only qualifier there is that the effort required to do KAATSU on a vibration machine is significantly more. And what we always recommend is make sure that you do not fall. I would, what team was, I was just speaking with a professional team, and they were quite shocked how difficult the KAATSU cycle was. They had not used KAATSU cycle before, and their athletes had used KAATSU cycle, and they were quite shocked with the effort that they needed to put in. So if you're using a vibration machine and you have the KAATSU bands on your legs, it will require a significant amount of more effort, especially the longer you go. And I just counsel you to step off the vibration machine or turn off the vibration machine once you feel that your leg strength is going and the amount of lactate is too much to stand upright. The last thing we want you to do is fall over. If we use the bands during weight resistance training, should we use them daily, or should we rest as we normally do when not using the bands? When you are doing weight training with KAATSU, the difference between KAATSU with resistance training and then KAATSU with weights is, with weights, you're using a much heavier weight and you tend to create micro trauma in the muscle fiber. So you're actually, quote, damaging the muscle fibers. When the muscle fibers are damaged, the body responds by sending out growth hormone that will help repair the muscle cells. This is what we feel is soreness. But since we are not using as heavy weights, in fact, much, much lighter weights, or you should be using much, much lighter weights with KAATSU, you're not creating that same level of micro trauma. And if you're not creating that same level of micro trauma, then the amount of soreness that you feel is less. And because if you use this 3 to 5 set, 20-second rest maximum using very lightweight or no weights at all, but you're still building up the stress in the muscle, you're still producing the growth hormone without creating the micro trauma in the muscle fibers. When you do that, you can actually lift daily because you don't need to rest, because you haven't created that same level of micro trauma. So the answer is yes. And you could, again, I can send the same question to us, and we will respond with an email with a very detailed 7-day program that you can follow if you would like to do weight resistance training daily. And it's quite remarkable if you can use KAATSU without heavy weights or even moderate weights, only using light weights, and you will be absolutely stunned how quickly you will either get strong or maintain your strength and size without the heavy weight and the soreness that we normally feel with traditional weight training. Next question is, if we are doing presses and working out the pecs, will KAATSU still work for that since the bands go on the arms? Yes. The growth hormone goes to the places where there is stress in the muscle. So whether you're doing push-ups or presses or bench press, whatever you're doing, even though the bands are on your arms, the stress is on the pectoral muscles. And that is where the growth hormones will go to do their thing. So we put the bands on their upper arms and upper legs because that is a trigger for the engorgement of blood in the limbs and the vascular benefits. But the muscular benefits can be anywhere in the body. Next question. Does the Bluetooth controller that are attached to the KAATSU B2 bands detach? It seems like they do. I'm not sure. I don't want to damage the bands. No, yes, the B2 bands, B2 controllers do detach from the bands. However, what we found is that most people who wanted to detach the controllers actually ended up damaging the band itself and destroying the connection inside. So we have like a little not a pouch, a locket where it goes inside and it's locked in. So you keep the B2 controllers on the bands itself, and then they're not damaged. You just keep the controllers on the bands at all times, and there's no problem there. Next question is, I'm new to KAATSU. I test out the cycle mode on light, then medium, then strong. I did 1 set, 2 sets, and 3 sets while walking outside. I'm trying to implement the Japanese LISS. What is that? Light. I know. Anyway, interval training program for walking for 3 and brisk walking for 3 and alternating. Is there a maximum limit or duration you recommend for KAATSU sessions? What we recommend is 6 cycle sets. That's about 42 to 45 minutes. And you could do the Japanese interval training period during that time by walking for 3 and then brisk walking for 3. I assume this is 3 minutes. And that would be very, very good. I would just set it on 6. Again, in this case, you did 1 set low, then medium, then strong, and you can continue that process, not a problem at all. There are people who do more than 45 minutes at a time. There are some people who do 90 minutes at a time. Those tend to be our type A personalities or our Navy SEALs or our professional athletes that are, or even we have some people who are musicians, performers, who are training their bodies for a certain thing. They tend to be at the upper limits of usage, but as long as you're using the KAATSU cycle, it's not a problem to have extended periods of time. How would you recommend KAATSU with isometric training? What would the protocol be? Excellent question, because we believe that isometric training is the best form of KAATSU for many people. Not everybody. Obviously, if you're a professional golfer or an NBA player, you need to be doing movement as you exercise, but especially for people who are looking to avert sarcopenia or delay sarcopenia, or who are coming back from a broken bone or in a wheelchair or a cast, doing, I'm going to just put my palms together and push and release, push and release, or put my hands together and pull and release, pull and release, or do a wall sit, or stand on one leg. All of these exercises, all these isometric training are excellent with KAATSU, absolutely excellent. And so whatever isometric training you do, if you can incorporate your KAATSU to that, that would be very, very valuable. I know when I was with some bodybuilders, so must have been 10, 11 years ago, I was with bodybuilders and they were showing me how they use KAATSU. And there were these huge guys with big muscles and they were using very light weights and they were very pumped. And I was very impressed. And then they said, "Oh, wait till you see this." And they went to their posing session and as you see the bodybuilders, they do all these poses and they're from their neck to their biceps to their core to their calves are all um, uh, contracted at the same time. And they said, "Well, try to do that." I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure out, because I hadn't been trained this way, how to contract every muscle in my body at the exact same time. And I tried to do that with KAATSU, and it was exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And so we've I learned from our physical therapists in Japan, our cardiologists, when they had some patients who were in wheelchairs or who had a cast on their body, how they use isometric uh, training while they were in a limited mobility condition using KAATSU, and it was unbelievable. It was very enlightening to me. So anyway, I know I spoke quickly on most of these. If you have any questions, or I recommended to you to send in the questions so we can provide you with a full written explanation that sometimes, in addition to hearing me speak, but then you have in written form that quite often is very helpful. So if you would like that, it's info at kaatsu.com. Send in the questions and then we'll answer them. And thank you very much for putting up with me. I'm sitting outside a public library just because of my travel plans. It got me uh, in this situation. I just needed a good internet connection, and I apologize for the start of this where it went down. And I thank you very much, as always, for your interest and use of KAATSU. And again, answer any questions. Sometimes it takes me a day or two to answer, but questions are always welcomed. And I love feedback, and I very much enjoy sharing the wonders of KAATSU with everyone. So thank you very much. And I think I got all the questions answered. If there's anybody who wants to raise their hand, I can stay on for everything, but I think we had 31 questions and we had another 8 previously. So thank you for your time here, and goodbye, good night, wherever you are. Bye. Oh, wait a second. Oh, sorry. 3 people have raised their hands. Oh, let's see. Who is raising their hands? Let's see. If you raised your hand, anybody raise their hand? Oh, I think that was me just clicking. So I apologize. All right. Take care all. Bye.